This had better be important.
Yes, sir. The American agent has infiltrated the X-Lab facility.
Welcome back to the Funker 530 Combat Footage Show. I'm Ronnie. I'll be your host. Do me a favor, tap on the like button, drop a comment in the chat. We're back. It's Friday. Here we go. What's up? Oh, yeah. Howdy. What's going on? Is it actually Friday the 13th? It is Friday the 13th. Well, shit. All right, we got Oregon in the chat. What's going on? Funker Friday. That's what we ought to call it. Why haven't we rebranded the show yet to Funker Friday? Barely know her. What's up? Indianapolis, Indiana, Boston, Detroit. Emphasis and syllables on that one. What's up? Chicago showing up. SLC, Utah, Salt Lake City, Saskatchewan. What's up? England, Long Beach, Norway, Eastern Oregon. All right. Hell yeah. I feel like it gets more diverse each time we go live. There's just more places that jump into the chat to let me know where everybody's, joining us from, because that's always been something that I've kind of harped on. Yes, I do have a lot of, unapologetically Americanisms about me, but we are an international community, and that feels so good all the time because there's so many people that really just want to see the footage. And that's why I've always done my best to, unfortunately, in some circumstances, my phone's going off, stand by. Unfortunately, in some circumstances, stay as objective as possible when reviewing it. We're going to talk about a lot tonight. War will happen tonight. We'll talk about countering the counteroffensives, Russia taking ground both in the east and up in Kursk. We'll talk about some strikes in Syria from Israel. We'll talk about Myanmar again. We're going to talk about South Africa tonight, because there's some interesting things happening in South Africa that I feel like aren't covered very much. But the first thing I want to get to is our sponsor for the evening. So tonight's sponsored by Sightmark. Now, about a year ago, Sightmark reached out to us and they said, hey, we're launching this new line, or we did launch this new line. Would you mind checking it out for us? And that line specifically was their M-Spec, their mil-spec line, military specification. I've actually got that optic they sent me. Now, back then, I actually beat the hell out of this thing. You can still see the scuff marks on it, and it surprised me. Because one of the things that I've always used Sightmark for is those budget builds, if you will. Small 22 semi-automatic guns that I just wanted to have for plinking around the house. They're M-Spec line, though, and I have two devices here, two optics from their M-Spec line. I have their Ultra Shot M-Spec and their Mini Shot M-Spec. This is where things start to step into the usability perspective for me, from a duty perspective. This is going to be 100% dustproof, 100% waterproof. It is going to go from an aluminum housing to a magnesium alloy housing. Sightmark, a lot of people don't know this, they are a Texas-based company, and they're actually under new management. Sightmark is one of those, again, companies that I would have historically aligned underneath of budget builds. But even from a budget perspective, if you're looking for something reliable, I have tested this thing to nobody's business. I kicked it. I played hacky sack with it. I threw my rifle with it on there, and I still hit where I wanted to hit. Locking quick detach, some of the other features, things like night vision modes, things along those lines that are going to come with the M-Spec line. Do me a favor, check out Sightmark if you're looking for your next optic. Give it a look, at least, and spend a little time with it. I think you might be surprised. So that's Sightmark. Thanks very much to Sightmark for sponsoring tonight's episode. But I also wanted to take a second and just, really personally thank everybody for continuing to come back here. If our sponsors make these episodes possible, right, you make it worthwhile. Just being here to watch the footage, to try and understand it with me, with the Funker 530 community, and understanding our mission, that matters so much to us. Yes, this is kind of a sub part of what we do every day at Funker 530. Our focus is always and will always be on getting the archive to a point to where user function availability is all next level. That will always be a primary function of us, for us. But the veteran community part, that matters very much. And I feel like this is our ability to directly reach out and chat with the community. You guys can bring up anything that you like in the chat, and I'm going to do my best to respond to it. I don't speak to everybody, for everybody on the Funker 530 side of the house. I speak for me. But we really do appreciate you being here, and I personally do. Anyway, let's get started with the show tonight. I don't want to belabor that too much. I'm going to sit here and end up crying. But we're going to start off in Israel. We're going to see some footage coming out of Lebanon, some strikes, more strikes from Israel as they continue to try and degrade Lebanese Hezbollah's capability to launch. These are just inside of the Lebanese border. Well, I guess that's not that far. That's kind of far inside of the Lebanese border, Ron. From this side, it's about 8 kilometers. From the bottom, it's a little bit further than that. But here is that little bit of footage that I have. Now, over the last week, this is the only geolocatable bit of footage that I could find. That's why we're covering this. We haven't covered a whole lot of the Lebanese Hezbollah strikes over the last couple weeks. And in some cases, there have been numerous, and I mean the density of strikes that you see on places like Geolocated or some of these other open source intelligence sources that are out there. The density of strikes has been massive. This week, it was a little bit dry. This was the only geolocatable strike I could find. It's gone, though. Whatever it was. Hey, Bob, I see you, man. Pontus, thanks very much for the 482. Now you're sponsored by Pontus 2. Yes, sir, we are. DSU, thank you for the $5. Funker 530 Friday. This one, discretion advised, is going to be a series of 2 strikes. These took place in Syria. Now you're going to see 2 strikes in here. The first one is going to take place at Quintiera, Quneitra. Anyway, it's going to be against an individual by the name of Ahmed al-Jaber. He's a member of the Golan File Unit of Hezbollah. Presumably, it's going to be Lebanese Hezbollah. They kind of operate without respect to any borders, you know. I'm not saying that in a bad way, but it's long been a running understanding that the borders are really, to a certain extent, a Westernism. But the second strike is just, you know, plainly speaking, going to be, according to the IDF, a, quote, terrorist. The first one, there is going to be a target visible here. Discretion advised. Here's the footage. Again, these took place in Syria. There's that second strike. I'm not sure what he's doing in the middle of that field there, but it... Let's move on. We're going to shift down to Gaza. We're going to see an official release by the IDF here. One of the things we haven't talked very much about are the 6 Israeli and 1, if I'm not mistaken, American hostages that were killed in a tunnel. Well, Israel released some footage of that tunnel and the living conditions that those 6 were in when they were killed. I'll give you a discretion advised on this one, not necessarily because there's any gore, but we will see the living conditions that those 6 were in. We're going to see some leftover blood, according to the IDF, from that, and some of it might be a little bit disturbing. Let's just put it that way. Here is the video, the official release, the English version from the IDF.
Couple of minutes, we're gonna go down into the tunnel shaft, 20 meters below, where the hostages were murdered. The tunnel shaft was in a children's room, in a house. Those are the walls of this children's room. with Snow White and Mickey Mouse on the wall, and a tunnel shaft where hostages were murdered downstairs, 20 meters below the ground. Hamas used those letters in the tunnel, and there was a hiding floor. All he needed to do is to break the floor and then go out through the children's room, inside to the street, and go back into the tunnel. This is how Hamas built this tunnel. The shaft goes down about 20 meters into the ground, using 4 separate letters. There, it connects to a narrow tunnel with no rooms that is so low you can't stand up straight in it. The tunnel is about 120 meters long and ends in a blocked iron door. This short blocked part of the tunnel is where the hostages were held and murdered. We know that between 2 to 6 terrorists were here with the hostages. We are gathering all the stuff here for forensics, for intelligence. We can see magazines, an AK-47 magazine, chargers, all by the used by the terrorists, Quran books, a hairbrush. We need to check who used it. But there were women here in the tunnel. This is their blood. This is the blood of Hirsch, Eden, Carmel, Ori, Almog, and Alex. They were heroes, and they were here in this tunnel for weeks or days, we will find out. But they were here in this tunnel in horrific conditions, where there is no air to breathe, where you cannot stand. And they survived, but they were murdered by terrorists, and they're still hostages, 101. Some of them are alive in the same conditions in tunnels like this in Gaza. And we need to do everything we can in all the means we can, to bring them back home alive. Why murder innocent people, women, young men? They were all in the music festival, and Carmel was at their home in the kibbutz. Why murder them in a tunnel after they survived 11 months in horrific condition? We pray and think in our hearts and minds, and we will keep on doing everything we can. Everything to bring back home all the hostages.
All right, let's bring it back up. Now, again, that operation to, quote, rescue those hostages, my understanding of it is as the Israelis started to get close to that, that is when it's suspected that those 6 hostages were killed in that tunnel, according to the IDF. And that wasn't something that we covered in depth very much, but the majority of those hostages were at the music festival. I think one wasn't, and one of them, an American citizen, he held dual citizenship, was actually, we've seen footage of the situation wherein he was kidnapped, captured. He was one of those holed up in a bathroom where Hamas threw hand grenades in. His arm was actually blown off, and not too long ago, they released some additional footage of that. I want to say I had that lined up for one of the streams, but I don't think we ended up watching it. Let's move on, though. We've got more strikes from the Israelis here. The commander of Hamas's Tel Sultan battalion in Rafah, Sultan, discretion advised on this one, along with 2 of his company commanders, were struck, and it appears as though they were moving somebody on a stretcher when they were struck. There's going to be a second strike in here as well, which I don't have a whole lot of details on. But this individual's name was Mahmoud Hamdan. F-Stop Rentals has a question. How did these tunnels get built without people knowing? Well, some of these tunnels were actually built by the Israelis, if I'm not mistaken. Now, they get expanded, reinforced, and built out further by Hamas over time. Hamas has admitted to doing that. They also have had concrete factories that have been, there's been surveillance footage released of those concrete factories being stood up and then spun back down. We've covered that in various degrees throughout time. Coming back up. Got some more official releases from the IDF here. This is operations in Rafah against the Rafah Brigade. Typical Israeli release here. Not a whole lot of substance outside of just ground-based operations. Now, they cut out the sound here, and presumably they did that. Maybe somebody's call sign or their name was used by a team leader there, if you saw him kind of directing traffic. All right, let's come back up. Now we're going to move into the West Bank where I have a bit more footage. I have counter-terror police conducting an operation in a hospital to apprehend a Palestinian that, according to the Israelis, took part in a car bombing. Now, this was all in Halhul. Here's the operation for you. The car bombing took place on maybe August 13th, August 14th, about a month ago. And they are now rolling up the suspect that was injured in that car bombing. All right, let's bring it back up. We've watched that once through already. The last kind of situation that I have for Israel, and from a footage perspective, I talked about this last week. There has been quite a bit less footage released, even by the IDF directly, as well as through, cell phone type footage over the last couple weeks. I have noticed that from a density perspective, although strikes continue to take place, this ground-based footage has been a little bit fewer and far between to come across. But a ramming attack took place in Rafah. Here is the footage of that ramming attack, and then we're going to talk about this one a little bit because they cut the video on us. But I'll give you some situational details here. The driver here, 58-year-old Palestinian Hayil Daifallah. 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 58-year-old Palestinian man here veers off to hit this bus stop, which does critically injure a 20-year-old Israeli. Now watch what happens right after. The video is going to cut here in a moment, but this man jumps out of his vehicle and appears to be holding something. The official Israeli release at the end of this said that this driver was, quote, neutralized on the scene by an armed citizen and other responders. I think that's our armed citizen, and I think we just don't have the full picture of the video here. Looks like he's working a slide on his way up there, if you ask me. Right there. He's got his hand on a slide of a handgun, moving towards that cab. Now, here's a little bit of aftermath video of responders on the scene. And I want to say there are a few photos as well. Video's coming up now. There is no sound to this. Now, one of the reasons that I kind of wanted to talk about this one is on or around October 7th, Israel's firearms laws were actually quite restrictive. And of course, they loosened those shortly after. This is one of those instances where who knows what that driver could have done had he been armed. There wasn't any information as to whether or not that driver was armed, but an armed citizen ultimately was able to respond to that. Protect your rights. Let's move on. That's the last thing that I have from Israel. Again, the footage from Israel has been a little bit less from a density perspective lately. We're going to go around the world really quick. I need to stop and thank everybody for their support to the stream. Thank you guys very much for being here. Stefan, thank you very much for the $6.61. We appreciate you, my dude, and your honest opinion. Keep it up. Well, thank you very much for being here. Appreciate that. Thank you to all the new subs. We, of course, always appreciate that. Welcome. We've been around since 2007, covering war the entire time. That is what we do. Our only function and focus is to archive video. Let's derail for a second. I'll give you the same elevator pitch that I give everybody out there. We sent Hemingway and directors in World War II in to bring back propaganda for us to sell war bonds, to help the public understand why we needed their support. Now imagine for a second, all they brought back was the, go get 'em boys stuff. Imagine for just a second that somebody was taking the in-betweens of everything that they had, right? All the reels that director took, that the producer took, the cameraman took, and all the pieces that they cut out. What happened to the rest of it? Imagine if there was somebody that was archiving and documenting that. Ultimately, it's always going to be a human, so it's going to be imperfect, right? But that's what we want to be, and that's what we're here to do, is to be the archive of history when it comes to war and the use of force. That's why we have law enforcement use of force. That's why we have use of force from a self-defense perspective. That's why we have use of force from a military perspective. We absolutely love that mission. That's why we're always focused on the app and the website rather than just posting something on social media. Ronnie, why didn't you post this one on social media? Social media is an afterthought to us right now. We are doing our best to move that stuff off of social media, off of where big tech and the Googles of the world and the Facebooks and Metas of the world can control it. We're a small team and we control our own destiny, if you will. So we appreciate you very much. I'm in my feelings tonight, but let's move on. We're going around the world and we're going to start in Myanmar. This is an interesting dude. This is a one-armed commander of the Tiger Column, one of the anti-junta forces fighting back against the military authoritarian regime that took over in 2021. This dude's a gangster. I'm not sure why he hucks that off into the bushes. Look like a 40 millimeter launcher, M79 type. I don't know. Somebody pick up the phone. Now he picks up a 203. He's going to prop it up on his leg here. Some high angle fire from that on that 40 millimeter too. Riot control launcher. Okay. Thump. All right, let's come back up. Now we're going to jump over to South Africa. This is an interesting video. This is apparently a cash-in-transit heist. Now, this one specifically went both good and bad. I guess when they rigged up the back of this armored truck with explosives, they might have put a little bit too much in it. Here you go. Wolf. I want to watch it again. Almost looks like a T-Series tank. All right. Let's come back up. I think I actually have some aftermath of that. I do. So after all of that, in comes the locals to effectively pick apart anything else that they can find. Here you are. I'm pretty sure that dude says loot at the beginning. Right there. Right? All right. Coming up. I think it might be Afrikaans. I'm not sure. Where are we headed to next? Oh, we're staying in South Africa, where we have a home invasion that gets turned around because, well, of a personally owned firearm. South Africa is not in a great place right now. Yeah, beer, that's what I was saying. Afrikaans, maybe, the predominant language in South Africa alongside English. Maybe, I don't know. Hey. Oop. I would argue that they are standard capacity magazines, Battle Chemist. And they're gone. Let's bring it up. And thank you very much for the new members. We've got a couple of those coming in tonight. Zzag4, thanks for becoming a Funker. Welcome. We got Tim, who became a Funker. Welcome. Tim DeHoo. I'm terrible with pronunciation. You know, I do try. It's just, I can't, I don't know what it is. I used to think I was good at them. And then now here we are. Let's move to our Ukraine map. And I'm going to take you guys up into Kursk, which is where we're going to start things tonight, where the situation is starting to get a little bit complex. Russia has taken back a bit of ground, but Ukraine has taken new ground. So in the Kursk incursion operation, this ground here to the west side, was previously held by Ukraine. Snagost, a counteroffensive conducted by Russia, has seized at least this town. We are on UA control map, We're going to see footage of that in that first bit of footage that we're going to watch. Starts with a column here, and we're going to see them end there, and then we'll eventually see a little bit of footage of Russian troops hanging flags in this town. But what we're also going to see is a little bit of interesting footage of Ukrainians conducting a second operation here. Now, it's a little bit more complex than drawing a arrow on a map, like you'll see all over the place on social media. Look, this is what's about to happen. You'll see words like cauldron and salient being thrown around. It's not quite that simple, but it appears as though Ukraine is trying to open a second front to the west, and they are currently fighting, and it has been acknowledged by Russia that they have established, again, another foothold to the west, specifically in Vesoloye. I don't know if I pronounced that correctly, but here. Now, according to those Russian telegrams, they are speaking about Ukrainian attempts to reach Glushkovo. We've talked about that before and some of the bridge crossings. Ukraine has done their very best to kind of condition this environment for that. We'll see a bunch more strikes on bridges and pontoon bridges, most specifically tonight from ATACMS. We'll get there when we get there. Those are going to be fired from HIMARS. And if anybody can guess why that matters, you win a virtual high five. Let's get started on the footage for this, though, because this is where we have the bulk of the footage for tonight. Here is footage of that Russian counteroffensive that took back quite a bit of ground on the western side of the Ukrainian-held territory in Kursk, Russia. These are Russian vehicles. There is no sound to this either. And that's quite a bit of capability. Note the spacing. We'll see plenty of drones tonight. See that lead vehicle starting to bang there. And then as they start to reach the outskirts of the town, this vehicle is going to start to engage all along this row of houses. You can see it doing so. That vehicle also engaging. You can see the impacts on the house and some of the tracer fire. Do I hear a doggo, Ronnie? You might hear one of my dogs walking on the hardwood upstairs. Mics can be a little bit sensitive. All right, let's come back up. Now, eventually, this video was released showing Russians flying 3 flags specifically over one of the houses, one of the apartment buildings. It looks like it's a 2-story apartment complex. Which has been geolocated to that town. Ronnie's dogs are getting hardwood upstairs. Red Rocket. All right, coming back up. I want to show you the geolocation for that one. So let's go back to our previous location here. So this was the start of that video. You know, we saw Russians move down and then eventually across this field and into effectively the town of Snagost. Don't know if Snagost. Don't know. This is the geolocation of that video that we just watched. So that is pretty central to the town there. Now, Ukraine continues to hit positions and bridges that Russia would theoretically be using to reinforce on the opposite of the same river. Seym. This river. I've got a series of videos for us to see here. The first strike taking place here. I would say discretion advised for this. And last week we watched a couple videos of large Russian strikes on concentrations of Ukrainian troops. Ukraine, it appears, has returned the favor. At that specific location, which appears to have a pontoon bridge crossing at it, Russian troops in the open are targeted by multiple rounds of what appears to be either ATACMS or GMLRS. Here you are. Moon's family fishing, I don't know. Not certain. That is going to be a ATACMS. The big cluster variant. What is it, something like 300 or 900 small cluster munitions coming out of that? Maybe. If it's not, you know, please feel free to correct me. Okay, coming back up. At that same location, but just to point you back to it, that's not the same location. That's because I pasted the wrong one, guys. Here we are. Let's go back to it. Here. So, just so you know I didn't lie to you. Previous strike. There-ish. But a very rare remote mine laying system was struck by Ukraine. This would theoretically be what Russia uses to launch anti-tank mines out into Ukrainian avenues of approach or known passage areas that Russia wants to deny the terrain from Ukraine. And we've seen the efficacy of mines throughout the entirety of this war. We've seen the efficacy of that during Ukraine's counteroffensive, trying to drive Bradleys through minefields, trying to navigate infantry through anti-personnel minefields. Some of the hardest hitting footage that we have watched on this stream and that we have seen from a combat footage perspective across this community have had a lot to do with mines. So taking out systems like this is pretty valuable for Ukraine. Here is that system being destroyed by an airstrike. Coming up for you guys now. What destroyed it? Almost undoubtedly GMLRS. All right, coming back up. I would make the argument that there's most of these strikes are either going to be JDAM-ER, that one very much so wasn't, or HIMARS. And there's a reason I believe that. I'm saying it almost qualitatively, but from a distance perspective and from a mission perspective here, I don't think Ukraine is going to be moving a lot of artillery assets here, nor are they going to be putting a lot of artillery assets inside of striking range for Russia down here. Now, technically speaking, just about anywhere in Ukraine is going to be in striking range, but they're going to have offset HIMARS, very relative long-range capability here that's going to allow them to reach into Russia in these locations where Russia is attempting to backfill support like that which they used to take this Western Front away. What the most interesting aspect to this footage, to seeing the amount of HIMARS strikes, which we have at this point validated, those first couple strikes were certainly HIMARS, is effectively the freedom to use American munitions in Ukraine. Let's move on. Move on to another bridge here. We're going to this location. This bridge was previously targeted, and I've shown you the video of that before, but I'm going to show you two pieces to this video. One, Russia continued to use it, so it didn't degrade their capability quite enough, and that's obvious given that Russia was able to take some of that western edge back. But then Ukraine said, okay, we're going to hit it again, and that's exactly what happened here. Note that there is a engineering bridge, one of those. I wish I had an engineer here with me. It's like a fold-up bridge that an engineering vehicle can lay over top of things. That's what that is, right there. And it would have allowed Russia to continue to move at least light vehicles and personnel across this bridge. Ukraine took it out. AVLB, is that what it is? Is that the terminology for it? AVLB? Appreciate it, guys. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I want to say I actually have some footage. I don't think I do. There is some footage of the aftermath of that, but I think I saved the Funker website link and not the social media link to that one. So I'll have to see if I can find that. But I do have an interesting perspective of that strike. Somebody that was rolling up on it to cross it. Nope. Nope, nope, nope. Back up. To unask that spot real quick. All right. Now, earlier I mentioned that there is a second operation taking place in Kursk to the west. Out here. Right? I'm going to take you to this spot. Show you on the map. Where we have footage of Ukrainians breaching the Dragon's Teeth with an engineering vehicle and other vehicles, entering into Russia, into Kursk Oblast, and eventually, according to Russian outlets, establishing a presence in this town. We at least have this footage of that breakthrough. We'll talk about this once we come back up, actually. Here's the footage. Hipster stash? It's the only stash that the army will let me have. Give me another week, it'll be grown out to the sides. We got infantry there. All right, let's come back up. I don't know exactly where this takes place, but according to Russia, this is footage of Russians on that western front in Kursk engaged with Ukrainians. Headphone warning.
Начинай, давай, давай, давай! Давай, давай, давай! Все будет!
All right, let's come back up. I was reading through the chat. Sorry. I got distracted watching you guys chat with each other. Carl, thanks very much for Carl, the $10. I wish I had 50 birthdays a year like you do. I only have one birthday a year. One. It's September 1st, and it came and went. But thank you very much for the $10. So happy birthday, bro. Not my birthday, it was, though. It's not my birthday. FK, bunch of words. Your username is quite literally like you did FKJ, 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 and I think that's what you did. But thanks for the 27 months, man. Appreciate that very much. Brock, I see a question in the chat. Armor Reforger or Squad? I prefer Squad. You know, I can rant about that for about 20 minutes. I don't want to do that. But Squad is kind of my jam before Arma is. Largely because I'm too lazy to take advantage of all the customization of Arma. I don't have the time to. When I want to jump in and play a game or something, I just jump in and play the game. We're going to play Space Marine 2 tonight. And that's a whole lot of fun for the Emperor. Let's move on. I only had one video from Pokrovsk that I wanted to really cover tonight. And there's a lot of takeaways from this. Oof. Yikes. There's a lot of takeaways from this, and I'm going to rant here after this one. But this is a complex ambush on a Ukrainian BTR-70. A lot of things are going to happen, and I'm going to walk you through them after we take a watch through this video, at least once. There's a lot of things happening right now. We've got FPV drones, we've got small arms, we've got RPGs hitting. On the ground is absolute chaos for these guys right now. I should have given you a discretion advised ahead of time for this one. All right, let's walk through a little bit of this. Let's see if I have... What does this do? Yeah, but give me a second here. Let me shut down one of these sources. That way I'm not covering up too much of the screen. There we go. I haven't used this screen in a while. I haven't used this actually since we did our last podcast, which we do have another one coming up here very soon. So as these Ukrainians, and what was described as a BTR-70, I'm starting to wonder if it's a BTR-80 though. As the BTR, one way or another, moves past this two-story building, an RPG is going to fly out of it and impact the side. That happens there. So this is your origin. Oh, I'm sorry, guys. I'll fix it. Stand by. Mic check 1 2. Check, guys. Is that better? Sorry about that. Just when I added that source. Yeah. All right, I got it. Is that better? We're good now? Hell yeah. Let's keep moving. So this RPG comes from this window and impacts. And I'm going to give you the reason why I think this is an 80 rather than a 70. Or at least maybe a later model 70. I don't know if the BTRs were changed towards the later age of the 70s, but there's one feature that sucks. This is a trash vehicle. Doesn't matter who's driving it. But note how long it's taking right now for the Ukrainians to execute their bump plan here. So you see some movement. You're starting to see dudes piling out of the side of this thing. You're just now starting to see that. That's because these are absolute death traps. The doors on the side of that thing are about the size of a McDonald's kiddie cone. And that's the only entry and exit point. The only other option you have is the hatches on the top. I mean, these doors are very small. I'm going to show you a very close-up picture of them. But these are the enlarged doors. These are not the small doors of the 70. The 70's doors are like, I mean small. I have been inside of one of these, and it is not a large vehicle. But they start to pour out the side that didn't get hit by the RPG. Note around the vehicle, though, you're going to also see small arms impacts. So there's small arms impact there. There's a small arms impact there. So, that FPV drone just hit the top. They're taking rounds from multiple directions right now. This is a very complex situation for these guys. Another FPV drone just hit the top of that thing. You've still got people trying to climb out of the side of it. From a doctrine perspective, the BTR has always interested me very much. It was never really meant to be like an IFV, just more along the line. It's not a fighting vehicle. It has defensive capabilities, but it was really meant to be a taxi. So that to the point to where the exit is really supposed to be the roof. You're supposed to get out on the roof. Now, if you got out on the roof in this, even those couple that survived, they're not going to make it. But that thing is a tin can of death. So as these guys are pouring out here, they're probably rocked from the RPG, from 2 FPV drones. They're going to be taking small arms here as well. And some of them, in fact, so we see them fall out on the ground. Some of them are going to continue taking rounds, and when we pan back over to that spot, it looks like they're deceased at that point. Or at least critically wounded to a point to where they can't really move. Another FPV drone. Extremely complex ambush there. Showing drones, indirect fires, and direct fires from an RPG and small arms. From multiple directions, again. Really an interesting piece of footage. This is one of those examples where you have an amount of context into modern combat that historically we just have never seen before, that we get coming from Ukraine. There's the running adage, war in 4K. This is a great example of that. It's stuff like this that's going to be studied in small unit tactics, in schoolhouses, all over the world. right? Even from a design perspective, you think about the gravity of this kind of footage from a design perspective on the vehicle. You know, this vehicle is, at this point is decades and decades old. So the designs have continued to change, but now you are almost justified in all those design changes. Anyway, I don't want to belabor this, but there's a reason that I picked this video specifically. It provides so much fidelity of what a complex ambush can look like with the introduction of drones, right? And that really isn't even a major catalyst of change on it. If they just kept firing RPGs, you're really providing the same effect. But that took place in Pokrovsk. We're moving into the general section here. I belabored that a little bit longer than I wanted to and kind of went a little bit off script. Not that I have a script. I only have a list of videos. But we're moving into our general section. Speaking of drones, we're that much closer to Skynet. And the Wild Hornets are going to show you what I mean. We now have drones with RPGs attached to them. And they work. Now, the first time I saw this, it didn't have any footage of the drone firing the RPG, and I had I wouldn't say concern, but the thought that the RPG might end up destabilizing the drone too much to make the RPG not effective. But it didn't. It just kind of chunked it out of there and kept on getting after it, and that sucks. A lot. So for those that don't know, I'm sure all of you do, the most vulnerable part of most armored platforms is going to be the top. It's typically not designed or meant to be engaged from the top. That's why we see the things like cope cages. Well, what you just did is you just put anti-armor capability up above it, and you can now take that back, strap another RPG to it, fly it right back out there, rather than even using the FPV drone. You don't even need to do that now and burn through your supplies of FPV drones. Now you have the tested and known lift ability of these drones to take, anti-tank munitions up into the sky and, Skynet them down on top of your armored vehicles. All right. Coming back up. More drone stuff. Yeah, here we go. There's a reason I wore our drone shirt. The one that says Modern Warfare on it. Hold on. Ow! Fuck. There's a reason I wore that tonight. Let's keep going. More drone stuff. You got 2 Russians on an ATV here. Now they're going to get targeted by this FPV drone. It's going to hit. Then they're going to have to dismount and then defend from further drones. Scary stuff. Here you are.
Автомат! Автомат! Стреляй! Автоматическим! Автоматическим стреляй.
Oof. First time I watched that, I ducked.
Бегом.
All right. Let's bring it up. We're not done with drones. We'll have plenty of drone stuff. To keep covering tonight. This next one, let me show you what I wrote for my notes on this one. Here, I'll show you my notes. It just says, oop. And I know exactly which one it is. It's a Russian perspective video. I'm trying to fix that. It's coming up for you now. Oop. Wait for it. What's that? We're working on it, Sheba. Stand by one, guys. All right, I'm back. Sorry. I said stand by one. I'm not sure if you heard me. I had to run and tell my daughter to stop screaming into her headphones. She's listening to music. Let's move on. Here's an interesting video. Got a Ukrainian sniper team about to be engaged by a Russian rocket team. Here's the footage. We'll talk about it. Let's run it one more time. All right, you've got two Russian rocket troops here. Well, Russian dudes holding rockets. You got one on the right side that he's taking aim on. You got another one on the left side here. Now, I am of the belief that he actually does hit with this shot. Reason being is the way this guy kind of is acting afterwards. Most of the comments that I saw on this one were like, haha, he missed. I guess people thought that it was like, ugh. He keels over a little bit, kind of slumps down. I think it hit him somewhere there. He doesn't engage the second guy, probably largely because of this smoke. That's a thought. I don't know. You can call it a take or something if you want. But I note that the rocket also goes kind of off in some random odd distance there. He's center mass on it. If he's dialed for it properly, it's not overly far of a distance. Unless there's major wind or something like that, it should have ended up landing home. And based on the actions of the dude on the ground that was firing the rocket, keeling over, not doing some movie scene, I think he hit the shot. Moving on. Last week we talked about Dragon drones. And the running theme and narrative from everybody, specifically folks that are in kind of the anti-Ukraine space, are, wow, Ukrainians are terrible people for doing this. Russia has picked up the technique. Here's a Russian Dragon drone, specifically thermite. So it's carrying up a canister of thermite and laying that down to set alight any vegetation underneath of it. It's standard. The use of incendiaries in war. Thank you, Ian. Jeroen has an interesting question. Doesn't it concern you the Nazis in your chat love your work? Which ones? Which Nazis? Specifically, which ones? Let me know. John, thank you very much for the 5. Bringing it back up. At this point, I'm expecting the Ukrainians to start testing drone cooks. Yeah. Drones, man. I don't know what to say. Luis, thanks very much for the $2. Anything I don't like is a Nazi, by the way. Archimagos Ronnie. John, thank you very much for the $5. Big fan of the tech priest Ronnie voice. Was it that bad? Was it echoing that much? Carl, thanks again for the $10. Moving on here, we've got discretion advised for this video. This is going to be thermal footage of what was reported to be Russians on some kind of a foot patrol of some kind. As they approach a compound, they begin to take fire from it. 2 of these Russians end up being hit immediately, with a third attempting to make his way further away from the compound. But once he comes back into line of sight of that compound, he also is going to receive small arms. I want to say we have some more FPV drones being engaged here as well. Discretion advised. Again, as they approach that building on foot, you can see muzzle flashes from the building. These 2 in the rear are hit. This guy rolls out of the way. You'll start to see impacts on the building, so they are returning fire. FPV drones have arrived. This guy's still engaging. He's going to start engaging again here. And then he's going to make his way off target. They're going to try and get him with an FPV drone here. It's going to land in front of him right there. And he's going to kind of unass the other direction. But when he does that, he moves back into line of sight of that building right as he passes this right here. Right? So if you look, these are his 2 boys right there. That building is right up here where my mouse is. So as soon as he comes into line of sight of that, probably what's a machine gun in that building opens up. Coming up. Okay. I don't even know. I don't know what to say about this one. I don't have anything to say about this one other than to aim for the joints. Joints in any hydraulics you can find. That's where you're going to want to aim for these. No. 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 Why'd they make it jump like that? That makes it worse for me. That's like one of the, that's not what I wanted to do. It's like one of those jumping spiders, you know? Spiders already suck. Don't make it jump. I'm telling you, man. This is a haunting video. So RT, they've been in the news quite a bit recently. They're on the ground with Russia. They recorded themselves being hunted by an FPV drone. Well, the FPV drone is likely hunting any militants in the area, and, well, this guy started recording it. But it was published by RT. Here you are.
Рэп включайте, она прямо в завод влетела.
Ugh. Yikes.
Фу!
Pass. Hard pass. I see a question in the chat. WTF is RT. RT stands for Russia Today. It's a state-sponsored, funded, and run media organization that has been in the news, quite a bit, actually. Recommend a Google search, maybe a research through, history, some of their supporting mouthpieces, if you will. But RT stands for Russia Today. That's what it stands for. Anyway, I wanted to check the website, actually, something that we haven't done together in a little while. We used to do this all the time. Is to just go to the website to see what was published most recently. Oh, this is an interesting one. Let's watch this. Hey, discretion advised here. Here's the thing. This is the United States of America, right? This is. If you're going to barrel at somebody with the intent to do them physical harm, understand that we have certain rights in the United States. This is what is purported to be a Palestinian supporter. He is going to charge a Israeli supporter whom is neither Israeli nor Jewish. I think he's just somebody there that's protesting on behalf of Israel. It does not go well for him. Here's the footage.
You are defending genocide. Genocide? Yes. But you are so stupid. Over 200,000. You're so stupid. You're stupid.
Here he comes. Oof. He was just shot in the stomach. So this guy, we'll call him Mask Guy, was just, I think that's it right there. I don't know, maybe. Was just shot in the stomach by this other gentleman. Now, this other guy is an Iraq war vet, right? They're protesting in support of Israel. This guy gets pissy walking down the street. Everybody's entitled to their opinion. Typically it's going to be best for you if you keep your hands to yourself. You never know who it is that you're going to be running at. Let's just put it that way. And if you're on the opposite end of this, make sure you know how to handle your own. But he barrels across that street, puts hands on this dude, and the dude that got hands put on him, the Iraq war vet, pulls out his pistol, puts one in his stomach. There it is right there. And there's the handgun.
Grab my pistol. Stop! Shut off him! Stop! Call the cops. You have it. It's fine.
Now here's where it gets interesting, right? This Iraq war vet is now going to render aid to this individual.
Call 911 now. Oh my God.
You see the round. You see the spot right there. That's where he's shot.
Stop! Go away!
Yep. All right, I want to say Will probably did this one for us. Let's see. It was Will. Let's see what Will wrote up here for it. It took place in Newton, Massachusetts. Yep. An agitated man wearing a Palestinian flag pin violently assaulted a pro-Israel demonstrator and subsequently shot in the abdomen. Will says, not surprisingly, the vet that just shot him promptly starts rendering aid. Let's check to see what else we got on the website that was published while we were live tonight. Here we go. We talked about this one tonight. We showed that one as well. I don't want to show you that one. I don't want to show you that one. We'll watch it. We'll watch this one.
Shit. Oh, shit.
Choo-choo. No. I think the train is actually pretty lucky that, by and large, this thing hit the very back of that. Now, this is a Paladin. This is a 109. But it's still got a lot of weight to it, Trains can actually be detracked by much, much smaller items. And I think again, I think there's some luck here that it hits the very back of it. A little bit of aftermath there. No. I don't think that's going to buff out, though. Maybe some 100-mile-an-hour tape, 550 cord to get that track back on there. I don't know. All right, guys. Well, that's probably going to... I always have one more video for you. I want to check in on the support, and thank you guys for sending it over. We're just about wrapped up for the night. Winnie the Pew, thank you very much for the $5. Appreciate that very much. Velox Mortis, thanks for hitting the member button. Appreciate that. Peyton Madmouse and Theodore, thanks for subs, guys. Appreciate that. Love to see that the community is still continuing to grow. That just means the world to us. John, thank you for the $5 again for that. Luis and John again and Carl, thank you guys for all the support. This stream is absolutely and will always be free, right? So you guys continuing to send in a few dollars here and there just means the world. I do also want to thank our sponsor for tonight, SiteMark. SiteMark, their M-Spec line, specifically the Ultra Shot M-Spec, is something that I have used. I don't even think I mentioned this. It surprised me so much, I bought one of these and gave it away. In fact, I don't know if this is better or worse, but the guy that won the giveaway eventually became one of the mods for tonight's stream. I swear to God, I did not rig that. It just happened to be that way. He's in the chat. But I bought one of these extra just so I could give it away because it did surprise the hell out of me. 100% waterproof, 100% dust proof. SiteMark, from an M-Spec line perspective, which I can speak to, and even more specifically, the Ultra Shot M-Spec. Give it a look. It's got some interesting features. It's got a lot of duty-grade capability to it. Thanks very much to SiteMark for sponsoring tonight's stream. You can find links for that down in the stream description as well as over in the comment section. I got one more video for you. I don't even know what I'm supposed to say for this one. I don't even know if it's real. I want to believe that it's real because I think it's hilarious. And also, maybe not hilarious. I have a weird sense of humor, man. I think it's funny because I think they survive. I don't know if they survive, though. They might not. I don't know. But if this was my friend sitting next to me, I'm probably going to whoop his ass at the end of it. Good night. Thanks for being here. Stay informed.
Знаешь принцип действия этой хуйни? 200 метров по оружию. Я с оружием нормально обращаюсь.
Bro, if that's you sitting next to me, I'm putting hands on you. No.
Хуй. Знаешь принцип действия этой хуйни? 200 метров по оружию. Я с оружием нормально обращаюсь.
Good night.